Talked about last week about getting off to a hot start. You guys started off 5-0, scored 73 runs. I mean, just what were your takeaways about what your team did well, and then maybe some things that you still want to try to work on heading into this weekend?
We've just been talking a lot about the ability to start fast, stay fast, finish fast. And I thought they just showed that all weekend long, especially at the end of the weekend. At the end of the week and start to feel things a little bit. And I thought they did a really nice job Sunday sticking to that.
How'd you felt that they were able to keep up that energy heading into Sunday, especially with some of the earlier games as well?
I think just understanding that Sunday, I just always feel like Sunday is your toughest day of the tournament because of just the previous games that you've played, and just us understanding that and really making an emphasis to push a little bit more on that day collectively, I think was important.
Were those offensive records even in the thought process of the coaching staff that this is something that team could do over a 5-game span?
Not really. I mean, I don't know. Just with the record stuff, we don't really get caught up in that. I think just the whole start fast is what we wanted to do. And can you start fast and then stay with it versus sometimes you get a lot of runs and then you just cruise. And I thought they did a good job of not cruising and just staying on it. So it was nice to see them put up those runs. I would love for them to continue that.
How big was it to see the offense come from a combination of the freshmen and the veterans like Kai and Keidru Lushar?
It was really nice just because I look at last year and we have 2 full starters from last year, and then Katie Flannery got in towards the middle of the end. And so you just go into the season knowing what we've been doing at practice, but then just anxious to see what it's going to look like when we all come together. So I just loved how they came together. You could see that they loved to play with each other. You could see that we have the ability to score and win ball games in multiple ways, which I think is going to be really important as we continue with our schedule.
You spoke really highly of the freshman class leading up to obviously last weekend's series. How impressed were you just from what they were able to do from this past weekend all together as a group?
Yeah, I was impressed. I thought they did a good job. Them and even some of our returners had some little jitters just early on, which I think is expected. But you could just see what I really appreciate is that they love to play the game and they love to compete. And it's the freshmen, and I think it's even just our entire group. So just to watch those 2 things is something that was pretty cool.
You obviously recruited a ton of freshmen, obviously, in your career here. Just where does this particular group rank in your eyes? Just what you've seen in practice, and just, I mean, I know it's only the first 5 games, but just what they were able to do, right out of the get.
They remind me of a young freshman group from some years ago that did really, really good things at the end of the year. That's what that's what I think about with them.
How do you feel about the execution in the circle? Because obviously it's some high points, some pretty nice performances, but when things got away a little bit there, a couple of times it also got away. So just how do you feel about the execution in the circle as a whole?
For the most part, pretty good. I think the weekend was just a tough weekend of us trying to find specific zones. When they found it, I thought they did well, and then when we didn't, I thought we gave things away. So just cleaning that up a little bit. But as far as just what their ability and what they're capable of doing, and the fact that they can change speeds, I liked that a lot.
Is that maybe the area you want to focus on most, seeing improvement this weekend, more in the circle than necessarily offensively? Because again, did a lot of really good things offensively. I suppose you always yearn for better, but hard to go much higher than what you just did. So is the circle kind of the area that's an area to focus on this weekend?
For sure. I would think, I mean, as far as like giving up hits and things like that were just very minor. It was just free passes that we got to clean up.
What do you think of Emma's performance behind the plate as a catcher, just what she was doing with the pitch calling and just her work in her first 5 games?
I thought she did a really nice job. There's specific things that she's just been really focusing on this January, and just to see it all come to light in the games. And again, I think just getting into the game, that competitor piece comes out, and you could see that once she got into the game, she just started just playing and just playing really free. I love the way she swung the bat. I think she does a great job of working with our pitchers, and also just what she does behind the plate. You could see we had a big pick against UNLV that would have really would have been a difference. We would have been out of the inning with that, just didn't go our way, but you could see that she has the ability to throw out runners as well.
Speaking of the freshman, kind of that pick, the play, you're talking about nerves often get in the first couple of games or whatever, but the defense was really, really crisp. As fast as they play, because they are fast, but there was only the one error. Speak to that if you could, about how that kind of plays into what you're looking for.
I think it's important, like I said, you have a shortstop and a left fielder that were on the field all last year. So everybody else on the field is new or had some, didn't have as many opportunities. So to see a group come together that's new and perform the way they did, I thought that was really, really important for us to start. I think that was defensively something that we really needed to do from the start, is set the tone defensively and for them to see what they're capable of doing together. And I just think the more reps they get, the better understanding they have of playing it next to each other and with each other and all that. So I was pleased.
I do want to touch on Paige just because, from her game, she's not known as a power hitter, but in the last couple of years, she's only had 2 home runs for the season. She had 2 in the first 5 games. How much did you watch her maybe, potentially practicing in the batting cages? I don't feel like we've seen a span like that from her so early on. And should we expect maybe more home runs from Paige throughout the season?
I think so. She's worked extremely hard on her offense. She works hard on everything, but I think there's some things that she's figured out this year that are going to go a long way for her. So I liked where she was in the order. I liked the opportunity for her to bunt for a hit, but then also be able to hit the ball deep like that and on a line. So I think for her to be able to do those 3 things, it opens up her game offensively for sure.
You guys stole over 30 bases this weekend, or well in the national lead. How big of an advantage do you think it gives you guys, just the threat of your speed on the base pass in terms of forcing other teams to make mistakes and make errors just because they're so worried about how fast your players are?
I think it's a huge advantage, and it's something that we've been talking about forever. These guys are just, every time they steal a base, they're counting down in the dugout because they're stuck on getting over 100. We were at 90 last year, and I think this group has obviously the opportunity to do that, but they're just take a lot of pride in that, and nobody wants to be the first one to get thrown out. But I think it says a lot too with what Coach Marder's doing offensively. I love all the games she called. I think for us to win, we've got to show that we can win multiple ways, and to be able to put runners in motion, to steal bases, to squeeze, to come up with hit and runs, to be able to hit the ball deep. We've got to be able to do all of that, and it was nice to see us in opening weekend show that.
What do you have to see this weekend? Up 6 wins, obviously, but particularly against Arizona State with the caliber of competition changing this weekend, to feel that much more confident going down to Cathedral City the following week and the competition really taking a big step up at that point?
I think the biggest thing for us is just really, especially this group, is just really sticking with their process, not overthinking things, not going, well, this weekend is this compared to last weekend. No, it's just what is it that we do as a group and how do we go about it, and just stay consistent with that and not get caught up in what's next, just get more caught up in the standard that we have of play every time we step out on the field, and we can get better this year versus the weekend before, and then continue. I think these 2 weekends create a nice build up for that weekend, but I just think more importantly, it's just us staying within us and understanding our identity and continuing to consistently show that, and then take it from there.
As a coach, how do you keep especially the younger players maybe in the moment, because Emma and Stephanie kind of talked about the neutral mentality that you guys are trying to keep, but for a young squad, those emotions are especially they're on very much a roller coaster. How do you keep them in line, especially during the game? What are you doing?
Yeah, and that's there's a lot of, we do so much physical training, but there's a lot of mental training that we've been doing all year, and it touches on that. And we actually had a situation in one of our games this past weekend where our emotions could have got the best of us, and we were able to recognize. I think one of the hardest things to do is to make an in-game adjustment, because sometimes your emotions get the best of you. So with that neutral thinking, it was allowed us to really have some good awareness right then and there, and then decide which way to go. And what I was impressed for as many young ones that we have, for them to have the awareness and to be able to show that as well. So I think for us as coaches, having teachable moments right in the middle of the game and then also understanding what they need prior to it, so when it does show up, that they're able to recognize it.
Is that after the Grand Slam?
I'm sorry?
Is that after the Grand Slam?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, guys, hey, we're still winning. And do you allow your emotions, all of a sudden to get you, or what's next? What's the next right thing for us to do? And that's to get off the field and to answer offensively. So, we talk a lot about that. What's the next right thing? And if you're talking about the next right thing, then your emotions aren't getting in your way. You're caught up in what is next.
There was a couple times that the umpire came out and talked to Lindsay about the circle. Was something going on with the pitching motion? Was she stepping off a little earlier?
Just they felt her foot was sliding off the mound and that she needed to keep it on. So.
Without going into specifics of any one player, are you going to be at full team strength, or are you going to be missing anybody going into this weekend?
No, I think we should be full. So.
What's the workload going to look like for Taylor Spencer?
She will have more of a workload. So exactly what it looks like going into it, I don't know. It just kind of depends on how she's feeling. But I'm looking forward to getting her on the mound. So.
Both you and Kai talked last week about the work that Kedri has put in the offseason in the weight room, just getting a lot stronger, become one of the strongest players on this team. To see her hit a grand slam in the first at-bat of the season in her home state, her first career home run, how awesome was that to see for her?
It was pretty
all the work she's put in.
Yeah, it's really cool because, sometimes these guys put work in and they don't get their results as quickly as they'd like to get it. And so then they start to question a little bit. And then it's just us reminding them, no, what you're doing is right. Keep moving forward. Sometimes it doesn't always show up on their timeline or the way they want it, especially same thing with us as coaches, just not patient. Like we just want it now, but just to keep trusting that whole process. And I think she's done a really good job at just laying into her process and not getting too high or too low about what she's doing. So I think it was awesome to be able to go to UNLV and open up the season for those three.
A question on the 100, is that something that or that the coaches kind of said, or did the team come up with that on their own? The program record for what it's worth is 120, so that's attainable.
Yeah, I don't even know. We just we talk a lot about what are our strengths, what are things that we need to work on, and that's a huge strength of ours. So how can we max it out? And to me, that's still an over 100.